Putin's army attacked the border areas of Sumy region. At the same time, even Russian war correspondents admitted that Ukrainian forces are constantly carrying out counterattacks. Analysts from the Institute for the Study of War have announced the current situation in the region. Z channels report that Russian troops have failed to completely capture Yunakovka, contrary to the Kremlin propaganda. In fact, the occupiers from the 76th Airborne Division control most of the village, but not the entire territory. The representative of the State Border Service of Ukraine, Andriy Demchenko, reported that the enemy is operating in small assault groups in the north of Sumy region. At the same time, the enemy has begun to use motorcycle units less frequently in this section of the front. According to him, the enemy is increasingly using guided bombs and unguided missiles. The main strikes are being carried out on the Yunakivska and Khotyn communities of the region. Demchenko also noted that Russian forces are increasingly conducting sabotage operations in the Sumy and Kharkiv regions. One of the Ukrainian fighters said that Russian drones using fiber optics remain the #1 problem for the Ukrainian Armed Forces. According to him, the enemy has begun to equip drones with electronic warfare systems to make them more difficult to intercept. Military analyst Konstantin Mashovets noted that units of the 11th and 83rd Airborne Brigades of the Russian Federation are having difficulty advancing in the Yablonovka area. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces have pinned down the actions of the 106th Airborne Division in the north of Sumy region, which has forced the Russian Defense Ministry to postpone plans for its redeployment. In this direction, the Ukrainian Armed Forces are also fighting with fighters from the Akhmat unit and Smuglyanka drone operators. Ukrainian forces have stabilized the situation in Sumy Oblast and pushed the Russian army further away from Sumy, the region's capital, Ukraine's general staff reported recently. Moscow launched its new summer campaign in May, aiming to push deeper into Ukraine's northeastern and eastern regions and disregarding Kiev's calls for an unconditional ceasefire. Ukrainian troops advanced near the village of Oleksiivka, located less than 30 kilometers from the city of Sumy, and liberated the village of Andriyivka, which had been captured by Russia in early June.
U.S. President Donald Trump answered questions from reporters early Friday at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland. According to Associated Press, he had just landed at the base near Washington, returning from an event in Iowa. Trump said he will speak with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Friday. He also said that he is very disappointed with the conversation he had with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Thursday. "I am very disappointed with the conversation I had today with President Putin, because I don't think he's there. I don't think he's there," he said. Trump has struggled to end a war that began with Russia's invasion in February 2022, a setback for his promises to quickly settle the conflict once he was back in the White House, if not before he took office. He blamed former U.S. President Joe Biden for Russia's war in Ukraine, saying it would not have happened if he were president at the time.
Expanding the Abraham Accords, any news from
Yeah, we are. It's one of the things we talked about, the Abraham Accords. Now that Iran has been taken out in terms of a nuclear threat, and they have been completely taken out, at least for a very long time, I think a lot of people are going to be joining the Abraham Accords. We have 4 great countries already, but we're going to have a lot of people, I think, joining the Abraham Accords. Yeah.
Some polls have shown the big, beautiful bill to not be very popular. I'm wondering, how confident are you in being able to sell it to the American people?
Yeah, I think it's very popular. It does many things, but one of them is the biggest tax cuts in our country's history. And that alone makes it very popular. The only poll that was done was a Democrat poll, and they'll ask 2 of the little bit controversial things, but good things for the country. The tax cuts alone, so it's the largest tax cut in the history of our country. And that alone makes it very, very popular.
Mr. President, can you talk a little bit about your expectations for the celebration next year? Obviously, a bit of a preview tonight. You talked about the Patriot Games. You highlighted a possible UFC title fight at the White House. What are your expectations for the celebration next year, sir?
Well, I think it's going to be a great celebration. It's going to be as big a celebration as we've ever had. And remember, we have the World Cup and we have the Olympics also. So we have that, plus we have 250. I think it's going to be a wild time. It's going to be a great time for this country. It's going to be the golden age. Thank you.
What's next for Russia and Ukraine? Are you speaking to Zelensky tomorrow? And what are you hoping the next?
I'm speaking to President Zelensky tomorrow, early in the morning, and I'm very disappointed with the conversation I had today with President Putin, because I don't think he's there. I don't think he's there, and I'm very disappointed. Well, it's not. I'm just saying, I don't think he's looking to stop, and that's too bad. This is Biden. This isn't me. This is Biden's war. It wouldn't have happened if I were president. It wouldn't have happened. So, I in one way I had to get too involved because it's Biden's war. And I got stuck in the middle of it, just like I did with immigration and a lot of other things that they screwed up. But I was not happy with the conversation, no.
Before boarding Air Force One to fly to Iowa, President Donald Trump made his first public comments about his administration pausing weapons transfers to Ukraine. "We've given so many weapons," he said. "We are working with them and trying to help them." But he suggested that his predecessor provided too much. "Biden emptied out our whole country giving them weapons, and we have to make sure that we have enough for ourselves," he said. According to Associated Press, Trump said he and Russian President Vladimir Putin talked about Iran and the war in Ukraine during a pretty long call Thursday morning. He said he didn't make any progress on a deal to end the fighting in Ukraine. "I'm not happy about that," Trump said. "I didn't make any progress with him today at all." Trump spoke to reporters before boarding Air Force One at Joint Base Andrews on Thursday, congratulating GOP leadership in Congress for passing Trump's big tax bill. "It's going to make this country into a rocket ship," Trump said of the One Big Beautiful Bill.
And perhaps a lot of you are going with us. How are you? And we have a very big crowd, so it's going to be a lot of fun. And we're sort of celebrating like the biggest bill of its kind ever signed. And it's going to make this country into a rocket ship. It's going to be really great.
Mr. President.
He met with a lot of House Republicans yesterday. What got them to yes?
I think when you go over the bill, it was very easy to get him to a yes. We went over that bill, and point after point, biggest tax cut in history, great for security, great on the southern border. Immigration is covered. We covered just about everything. Again, it's the biggest bill ever signed of its kind.
Mr. President.